What is going on, everyone? It's David Palmer, Leo King, and Rich Lopp here for the Awakening Experience. We're going into the death card for today's episode. Hope everybody's doing good, but especially hope you're doing good. Rich, how you doing?
Doing good. Settling in, getting more comfortable every single day. Loving this show, having a lot of fun with it.
It's too much fun.
Yeah. I'm kind of blown away by the response that we're getting.
I'm loving it. You said you had envisioned this, and believe it or not, Rich has a new episode that's going to be coming out tonight on Live. It's going to be out on Tuesday. I don't even know if you fully understood the title yet, right? Or
Not really. I think I'm just going to let that come to me. But yes, I mean, it's kind of weird because yes, I did envision this. And this is kind of the way my whole path has gone ever since I got on my path, is I'll get these weird visions that make no sense. And I saw a vision of me and you doing this. And it was weird to me because, like I said, I always try to figure my visions out. That's like one of my hang-up spots. But first of all, I didn't think that you would even like me. I thought that you were somebody that wouldn't like me. So that's another thing that weirded me out when you got that reading from me. So when I started getting these visions, I'm like, okay, well, he got a reading from me. Why do I have this weird, funny vision in my mind of like being on a podcast with him? He's not somebody that would like me, you know? And I'm trying to logically figure this out. And now it makes sense, but yeah, I saw the whole vision of everything that we're doing, and it's just amazing to see it play itself out the way it has, you know?
I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't think I would like you, but it was funny because my mic wasn't actually working. It wasn't plugged in. I got right on here too fast. I'm like, where are my cigarettes? And then I'm like, oh shit, there's the countdown. There I am. But that's life. We always have a fear, super death card, right?
Yeah.
Death card could also be the fear that we create that something's not going to turn out the way we want it to turn out, which I know we did the tower last week.
Yeah.
But the death card can be a complete just irrational fear too.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like, I don't know. Do you think there's a difference for you with reverse death card to death card? I think that's a really good question to start off with.
Well, if we're talking about just the actual death card itself as being the process, because when I think of the death card, the first thing that comes to my mind is a slow, gradual transitionary process.
Yeah.
Like that's the reason why it's the Scorpio card, because in Scorpio season, everything is slowly dying.
Yeah.
And the leaves start slowly changing color, and then everything dies and it's dormant, and it's a slow process.
Right.
Now, if we're talking about just the process, yes, the reverse of the death card would be trying to fight against that process. Like we always go through different transitions in our life. And I think a lot of people get hung up whenever they get scared because they feel that transition coming. So they try to control things and keep things going the way they're going.
That makes sense.
And that kind of leads into what we were talking about last time, to where, you know, that can lead to a tower moment. But if you just kind of go with the flow, it won't be a tower moment. A lot of times it'll be like a death process. Does that make any sense?
It makes complete sense because I feel that's the huge difference. Tower moments are, it's been building up, and it's fucking, it has a faded quality that's different than the fade of something that's coming to an end that feels natural. The death card's a natural death. Whereas to me, the tower is a death that is almost in many ways like it's not on our true path, so it's a course correction, a very shitty course correction.
Yeah.
Whereas like I feel like the death is a natural course. Mm-hmm. It's part of life, number one.
Yeah.
It's part of like trees, life. Everything has death within it, right? But it also, to me, is that sunshine that's in the card. You know, one thing about the tower card is it's fucking dark as fuck. There is no sunlight. It's the farthest away from sunlight, but there is that sunrise in the death card. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's like it's a cycle thing too. There's just some parts of life where it's like a cycle, right? Like maybe people could probably, and I'm sure for you, because I mean, I did a lot of tarot and love, but you do a lot of it. So it's like there's sometimes where the death card doesn't mean it's over. It just means that there's cycles in relationships where it's like, all right, this issue that's been going on, it's finally come to its end. That's the cycle. But then there's like overlying death moments in life that I feel like, man, those can be difficult, but they always have a positive aspect. I know the Tower card does too, but it leads to the Star. So it's like, it's one of those things where it kind of leaves you like, hey, here you are. You're on, you're cleaned up, but you don't really have much. Like, you're just kind of like, oh God. Where I feel like the death card has a transcendence element to it.
Yeah.
Where death cards can show up in the best moments of your life and be positive. Mm-hmm. Where again, it goes back to me natural or when we're off course. I think that's the difference between those two cards. So that's why when I see a death card, it doesn't scare me. If anything, I'm always like, oh, thank God. Because sometimes you want something to end naturally, or at least end without it feeling like some fucking like explosion. There's something about the death card where you're right, he's cruising in.
Yeah.
It's soft, but it's not soft. If that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the overwhelming majority of the time, any time a death process is coming up in life, it's almost always a positive thing. Not always. There's exceptions to that, but to throw a number out there, I would say probably a good 75 to 80% of the time, it's a positive thing. And it turns into a negative thing when we either try to control it or try to stop it from happening, or try to make it happen a different way. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of, like, if you see this come up in a relationship, that doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship's coming to an end. It a lot of times means, okay, the two of you were at this level. Now you're going to this level. Right. And then we start feeling that strange energetic shift between the two of us. And then that triggers our defenses, like, what's going on? So, we try to fight that process, and then, of course, it ends up being a Tower moment. Us trying to take control of it and not trusting the universe and going with the flow almost always is what makes it turn into something more negative than it needs to be, I think.
That's true. I feel like because that defense mechanism that's with the death card, it to me, when I look at this card, it's the fact that the Hierophant's sitting in there. It's like it's like the Matrix. It's the indoctrination. Like when you said transcendence or leveling up in a relationship, there's a fear moment when you're going to get married, right? There's a fear moment when you're going to have a child. There's a fear moment when you're going to enter into a relationship, or if you're going to move, or if you're going to do something. And that Hierophant is the indoctrination of like, be this way, which there's beautiful parts of the Hierophant, but the negative downfall is if you get too lost into the do it the same way all the time only, then it feels like you only get your power through the church in that case, or maybe the Pope, or whatever religious figure, where I feel like the Matrix can feel that way. And I think that the death card actually to me is, I call that because you said Scorpio, which it is, but it also, Pluto is representative of Scorpio. So it's the Pluto energy that brings us into this life and takes us out. But that means that it also takes us to other levels too, just as much as it brought us in. So it's a reflection moment too of like, how you've got here, and the way you get through the fear is to not let that programming get you. Yeah. And go, if I got here, the only way I'm going to keep going up is to that new sunrise that's taking me to a new day. It's like a new dawn. But I also feel too that, man, one thing I got to say about with this lunar eclipse that's happening in Scorpio that's going to be this week. And it's weird because this is under an eclipse cycle that was back in 2004. If you look at the last 19 years, it's like it's coming to its close to the whole new chapter. And so there's a bunch of fear of like the unknown. That's the other part of the death card too, is it's the unknown, that moment between death and to wherever we go next. And that's where I think people can be so scared, yet to be honest with you, if anything, in our culture and society, it's only within this last like 150 years that death became so, boxed up. You don't see it happen. You used to be able to walk down the streets during the plague, during the Middle Ages, and there were just people dead on the ground. It was a normal thing. It was just normal. Now people just are eerie if they see it on a TV show, fake with makeup on. And I think the death card doesn't do well with fake either. It's a card that cuts through the bullshit and gets right to the matter at heart too, which is why I like it a lot.
Well, that what you just said, the fear of the unknown is the biggest. That's the only reason why we're afraid to actually die, is because we don't really know where we're going. But even in a death process in life, I think I said this on the other show. Did I make the analogy where people, if you're stranded on a desert island, most people would rather stay there knowing they're going to die than to swim out and venture out into the unknown. I don't know if
you did say that one.
I thought I said that. But yeah, they said that they did this study where they asked all these people this question. If you crash landed onto a desert island and you know you're going to die, there's no drinkable water, there's no food, would you venture out and swim out into the ocean? Most people said no. They would rather stay there because they know they're going to die than to venture out into the unknown. Maybe you might find a boat. Maybe you might find land, or maybe you might get eaten by sharks. You don't know. But that's the fear of the unknown is what keeps so many people resisting that death process.
I know it's going to be so cliche, but it reminds me of, all I remember is Wilson, but I forgot the name of that movie where he is stranded.
Yeah. Castaway, yeah.
Where it's like, it's kind of a double death card because it's like he's attached to a fucking volleyball that he makes to become his friend. And when the volleyball fucking goes away, which gave him the confidence to swim out there to find a way on, but without losing Wilson, he had to have that will that he has to find with himself too to get over the fear.
Yeah.
But it's like that's the big part is like you get to a point in life to where it's like we have to transcend. I mean, the idea that people have like that life is going to stay the same all the time in the same way, and even like in society, it's always going to look like this. It's not. I mean, 200 years ago, the idea of even like having something delivered from Amazon, like that wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Which 200 years from now, we have no idea what it's going to be. So there's so much of that evolution, though. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in manifestation, in all spirituality, if you resist evolution, which is totally different than the tower card. I think people get those are the two cards that are like oh my God.
Yeah.
But the death card's the one where I'm like, oh no. I don't look at it as the bad card. I look at it as the good card because I'm like, no, it's coming to the moment of transcend. It's a good moment. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all positive. I think it's when you're in denial of evolution though.
Yeah.
Because I feel that's what it is. Evolution is what makes the whole process of manifestation so important. If you're just going to want to stay on the same level and never get to the next one, that's when things can actually, I feel like you can miss the next level, and then that's when you start falling down more, and that's when it becomes unnatural. It's like things come in for a reason and they leave for a reason, and that's where death itself comes in. You and I were talking about that before the show a little bit.
Yeah, you have to allow yourself to go through an ego death because it's the ego. The ego loves to be in control, but it's too stupid to realize that it never was in control. But it wants to know what's coming, know how to navigate each step, and it wants to be able to foresee what's coming and know how to navigate.
Yep.
And through a death process like this, that's almost never going to happen, and it's scary. Like for example, me moving here to Southern California and starting this new project scared the shit out of me. I was fucking terrified. I knew I was being called in this direction though, but all this was like scary. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done anything like this, but it's like, yo, this is my whole path.
Right.
My whole path. When I first became a YouTube tarot card reader, I was terrified. You know how many comments I've gotten from people who say, oh, you used to be so humble. No, I was scared to fucking death.
Right.
I was horrified. And anytime you move up to a new level, it's going to be scary. Like I've said, there's two types of manifestations, A type and B type. And the A type manifestations are things that we're used to, like a new car or a new job making the same amount of money or a new apartment. And then the B type manifestations are those big, huge, life-changing manifestations that are going to require a different version of you.
Yep.
And turning into that different version of you is scary. You're going to have to do things you've never done before. You're going to have to be connecting with people that you've never connected with before. It's going to be really uncomfortable all the way around for a little bit. But then eventually it becomes comfortable. That's that death process. So that's the old ego, the ego who was running the show in my last chapter, that guy's got to go bye-bye.
Yeah.
And a new ego has to develop into a new level, transcendence, like you said.
Yeah, and you know what it reminds me of when you brought up when you were just starting, you were terrified to do tarot, and then you did it, and people are like, man, you got fucking out of your humbleness, and you got confident. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And so when I see that, you see it, it's not just people in our positions, and everywhere in life. When somebody finally has the confidence to become the manager, what happens? You see all the people who aren't willing to make that work in their life, that transcendence, that change, because the death card is about willpower too. Mm-hmm. It's that willpower to keep facing the changes and the fears and to go to that next level. You always see all the people starting to talk shit. And they teach you that in the military right away. Right when you go to boot camp, they put people that came in with you in charge. And I learned that I became the leader of my division called the RPOC, right? So I'm 18 years old and I'm in charge of all 80 people now. Now, above me are, of course, the people who are in the military, but as far as it is concerned, if nobody's in there, I'm in charge. So they teach you right away, like, you better respect your commanding officer, whoever that might be, within the ground. And so it showed me how fast one person could be my friend for the first 3 days, and then for the next 3 months hate me. Just because I was terrified, but I felt so good going through that fear. But that you see that at jobs, right? Somebody becomes the manager, you guys were buddy, you guys hung out at the job, and then boom, they're the manager now. Oh, fuck him, and blah, blah, boom, because they're not wanting to ascend either. So the death card also has that nasty part where people could get really dark. Mm-hmm. They get really dark because they're afraid to evolve, and that's when they become cockroaches and start fucking going underneath the fucking toilet.
Yeah, people have this thing when they're afraid to evolve. For some reason in their mind, they get this idea that if I can pull you down, because you evolving and you doing better than me makes me feel like shit.
Right.
Because I'm too scared to do it.
Exactly.
So rather than me get up off my ass and do the work to get to where you are, I'm going to pull you down to my level. And that's where their mind is.
Lobster shit.
Yeah. Like the crabs. Yeah, crab in a bucket. Yeah.
And Jordan Peterson talked about that, and he used to get criticized because they did all the studies on lobsters with that SSRIs worked on them, because there's the same way that we have our own hierarchy system, in life, right? Where it feels, when you start making it up in life, right, you feel better. The serotonin in your brain, by you evolving, makes you feel better. You do better at work, you do better with your family, you do better in life, your serotonin does well. But you become depressed when you don't, and what do is start grabbing on everybody that's above you and wanting to take them down to your level. Mm-hmm. So the SSRIs work because part of our evolution as human beings come from fucking lobsters. And that whole lobster crab shit where they try to pull the one out, even though it's getting pulled out to get eaten, they just want to go with where you're the chosen one now,
Yeah.
And to me, that's so death card, because it's the flip side of it, or it's both. It's you're ready to go to that sunrise and go through that evolution. And then there's others that remind me of that Hierophant who's like, no. You're not allowed. You're supposed to stay here and you're supposed to pay penance to me all the time and you're supposed to give me all more money. You're another client lost.
Man, yeah. No, but
we didn't want you to go to heaven yet.
Yeah. No, but seriously though, almost always it's a positive thing. Like, especially if you're on a manifestation path. Like, if I'm on a manifestation path, like, I don't pull cards for myself.
Right.
But if I ever was to, that would be one of the cards that I would want to see the most.
Yeah.
Because if the death card's not coming up, that means, well, fuck, it's not time yet.
Yeah.
But if I'm like, okay, if I was to say, is my manifestation coming, and the death card comes up, sweet. That means that this is phasing out.
Yeah.
But then that trust, there has to be a trust element in there, because it's scary. Like what you were saying a minute ago, it's scary, the unknown.
Right, but it's the weirdness is death is a guarantee it's not going to be changed. To have trust in this world, you have to realize when you die, or even the trust that you came into this life and that you made it through the crazy process to even get into this life, is fucking so guaranteed beyond that you can't even question the trust, because it's, no matter what, you're going to die and you're going to go somewhere. It's going to happen. And you have no way to control it, because when you brought up that timing That's why I think people are so scared of the death card and the Tower card, but they're different timings. It's the timing that we're not ready for in the Tower card because we are not evolving at all, and it's coming to destroy things to get us back on the path of evolution. So that's a horrible timing moment. It's like, fuck, I didn't want to have to deal with this now.
Yeah.
Whereas the death card is, this is the time to deal with it, and it's going to get you where you need to go. But you have to be aware of it, because some people will avoid that moment too. You could feel it coming in life, and that's where, death itself, like when, you said you've lost your father, I've lost my father. It's like, those are hard things to deal with. But if you keep holding on to the past of death or people or energy that has gone out of your life, you don't evolve either. It's one of those things to where you embrace the forward transformational process. You don't hold it. If anything, that's what kills people too, is holding on to regret, fear, shame, guilt, all these things.
Yes, that's one of the points that I was wanting to make when we were talking a couple of weeks ago off camera about divine masculine energy. Like, this kind of veers off onto a different topic, but like holding on to that energy. Like, part of divine masculinity is learning how to properly process through.
Yeah.
Because as men, we are kind of coached, if that's the word. If that's the word, we're taught that you're just supposed to bury your feelings and swallow them, and that, I contend, is the reason that men die before women do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that men should be emotional, whiny little bitches. That's not what I'm saying. But you could take the most emotionally immature woman and the most stoic man, and she's going to live longer because at least she's releasing it.
Right.
Now, I don't condone it. I'm not condoning that. But
it depends, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, at least she's releasing that. So yeah, holding on to that negative, toxic energy, like we were talking about in the last show, is that'll kill you.
Because like you say, I'm looking at the release, like especially with men. But it doesn't matter. I think with the death card, it is a moment of release from something. And of course, I think other tarot cards help with that. I don't pull for myself. I think you don't either. It just is like,
yeah.
I don't know. I've never based my whole decision of my life on, I'm going to pull a bunch of tarot cards, because what happens is, let me pull another one, and let me pull another.
Yeah.
And then you get into a story that doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
just, right? It's like, I've made maybe some, but I feel like it's one of those things to where it's like, gosh, it's such a great tool to help others and be that channel to it, which is kind of what the death card is. There's some usher. It's an usher too, that there's a divine force ushering in the message or the transformation or that. You were talking to me actually when I was setting up the cameras with you. It's like there's those little nuances in life, like you just get a vision about something and you got to be able to put it together, because it's like a sign from the universe. And I feel like the death card can sometimes be a sign coming, because it's kind of weird. I mean, if you think about it, he's got a fucking flag. It's like we always think of that, especially I'm from Orange County in California. We have flags on the beach. Like, it's green flag, the waves are pretty chill. Yellow is riptides and it's dangerous. Red, holy shit, it's dangerous. Not recommended to swim, but if you've got the balls, go. No lifeguard though. Black card though or black flag is kind of an interesting one to me, because it does have like a rose on it. It's like there's that, it's budding and creating and seeding something new.
Yeah.
And then it's at the same time, it's weird when you think of marriage or you think of even funerals, people keep the roses or they keep the flowers forever, right? Even though they're dead, but there's still something about it that carries on. There's a little bit of that remnants, like there's still going to be the remembrance of stuff, but it's about being a remembrance, not being where you try to relive it 24/7. It's one of those things where you go live your new life and you can have the remembrance, and it's nice to remember, to reflect too. So that's why I think it's got a big reflection in the card, because there's that sunrise that's up. And what's weird is there's two towers which are in the moon card, and it's when the sun comes up. So if you think of the two towers in the moon card is when it's opposite, it's the moon and it's all hidden. It's not hidden anymore with the death card. It's all out in the open. That's why I like it too. To be honest, I'd have the death card any day over the moon card. But I have the moon card, I'm like, uh-oh, that's just fucking, something's not out yet. Something's being suppressed.
Yeah.
It's all has to be released, but I think there's a healthy way to do the death card opposed to, like you said, especially with men. If men aren't releasing, and you don't have to release on people, right? Like for me or you have your hobbies, I have my hobbies. Like men have to have a hobby. If you have a dude out there and he doesn't have a hobby, he's probably released. That's where guys go to then dark places.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just kind of had a little.
They go to a dark place.
Like,
I mean, there's unlimited ways that you can process energy like that. I mean, you can go to the gym.
Right.
Go to the gym and
I was
rip that
thinking
shit
of
out.
gym, fucking whatever.
Yeah, do something to take that energy and turn it into something new, you know?
Yes.
And channel it with an intention. That's a big part of divine masculinity. A big part of it, I think, you know? That's not the end all be all, but that's a huge part of it. But no, with the death card, maybe it's just me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always feel it coming. Always. And like I said, I see the visions. I'll start getting these weird visions, like what I talked about in my new manifestation episode. And one of the things that I learned on my path is the minute I start seeing these little visions, I start taking action towards that immediately. You know, as soon as I start getting them, like they'll come in and they'll start getting stronger. And I think most people just kind of brush it off.
Yep.
They just kind of brush it off like, yeah, whatever. That's just my imagination playing with me. No, that's the universe telling you, okay, this is where you need to go next. This is what's coming next. But whenever we let the ego analytical thinking brain get in and try to figure out every little step, that's where we fuck up. You know, like I saw a vision of me and you doing this a year ago.
Right.
And to me at the time, it made no sense at all. Because like I said, I didn't think you would like me. Well, I'll tell you why. And I'm not a big fan of using these terms, but to make this point, I don't have any better terms. You strike me as more of an alpha, and I'm more of a sigma. And a lot of times, alphas don't like me because I'm just kind of like, I do my own thing, and I am my own person, and like there's a lot of times I'll clash with alphas. So that's why I was like, he probably wouldn't like me. What in the world? Why am I seeing this vision of this? Dude, if I could just put you in my head for 5 minutes, I saw this.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, and it kept getting louder and louder and louder. I don't know why. Okay, well, I'm going to start taking action towards it. Then next thing I know, a few months later, Leah's telling me, oh, he's in Huntington Beach. That's 20 minutes away from my mom's house. And I'm like,
I know.
Well, I'll be damned. And
that was when we met too.
Yeah. And that's been my whole path. I'll see these weird little visions that make no sense to me because I'll try to figure it out. And every single time I just start taking action towards it. And then the universe is like, okay, and lays the path out.
I got to say though, I don't know if maybe I'm like an alpha sigma. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
well, you know, like I said, I could be wrong, but
because I'm somebody who's all about, I do the same thing. I'm just my own person, do my own thing. But I'm not I guess I don't, somebody doesn't have to be doing what I want them to do. I'm not that kind of, I'm the opposite. I'm like, no, you do you. Like I fucking,
yeah.
I don't like teachers' pets in like life. You know, I don't like,
yeah.
I don't like people that just like want to just like, whatever you say, sir, like that's not me. Like, that's not me. That's funny though that it comes across that way. But
well, it struck me as that. Like I said, I didn't know a whole lot about you. I'd watched,
but I get it a lot.
Yeah, I'd watched maybe 4 or 5 of your videos, and it was just more the energy, more of an outspoken alpha type, not in like a bad way, you know, but just like the outspoken type. And I'm like, yeah, people like that usually don't like me, you know.
But to take the concept of where we're going. I've been doing this for so long and in front of a camera that I'm so comfortable that I'll say whatever the fuck I want so long and just go to the fucking extremes that it's like you've been doing it and you watched it and you wanted to be doing more of this kind of shit. And so that was probably what it was. It's that moment we all get where it's like, am I going to be liked or am I going to, I don't know, is this going to work out? The evolution, we all go through it. Like me, like, I didn't know if you'd like me if I'm not fully doing all the manifestation shit.
No.
You know what I'm talking, but you know what I mean? That's where I need to evolve too, right? It's like, and especially when I'm getting into my ear from my fiance and from other people and all that, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh God, you know, like, okay, I've gotten enough messages that I got to move into this area more.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, but I saw that too. When I saw your shit, I instantly knew. I'm like, yeah, we're going to connect. And when you did hit me up and you were close by and I was like, oh yeah, you're fucking Orange County. I'm like, let's for sure do it. And then we did the New Year's thing and that was off trust. We saw that. And then when we saw this after that, and it was crazy because it was like we had 5 minutes after the event sitting right here and it was like, yeah, we're thinking about moving to Orange County and doing it. I'm like, yeah, let's just go. And that was a lot of trust because I was like, I know he barely knows me and everything, but I gave him the green light, like, let's fucking full blown, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And you did. And then I was like, all right. And I hope he knows he can trust me that I'm a man of my word too. And we both did. So it's like, you know, I think more shit happens like that, but those are rare moments.
Yeah.
Well, those are rare.
That's
and
like
death cards are rare moments too, though.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's like, that to me is like the definition of the death process, you know? Because like I said, the beginning of 2022, I could feel something is changing. I just don't know what.
Yeah.
So when I got that first feeling, I started doing what I like to call knocking on doors. And I talked about this in the last episode.
Yep.
And that's the process. When you feel it changing, I think a lot of people get scared and they want to grip on and control it. And, you know, I want to keep, like, I don't know. Do you know the Everyday Masters? You know who he is? He's a reconnective healing practitioner. And it's a form of energy healing. Well, he has a YouTube channel. And he influenced me a lot on my path. And he had a video where he said something to the effect of, when you take your hands off the wheel, you know, metaphorically speaking, the car starts going like this. And then the first thing we want to do is jerk the wheel back. No. I got to keep it on the road. And it's like, no, you're supposed to go that way. When you let go of the wheel and you start veering off track, you're supposed to go that way. And that, I think, is... Well, the whole 3D matrix was built around fear, like we've said. And that fear of if it veers off track, what's going to happen? The first thing we do, because we've been so trained to think negatively, is envision a worst case scenario.
Right.
And I've learned on my path so far, knock on wood, ever since I lived under a bridge, every time I let go of the wheel, trembling, shaking, scared, like this whole thing we were just talking about. There was a part of me, I was scared. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I don't know what I'm doing. When I got up on stage that night, I was scared to death. I was terrified, petrified. But I could feel myself being pushed.
Right.
So I let go of the wheel, scared as shit. I hope I don't hit a brick wall. I hope I don't hit a brick wall. But every time I let go of the wheel, the universe has me.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Every time.
And
it's interesting because in High Vibe, there's a question somebody has that I think you would probably have a good answer to this from your assessment of it. Is our society right now in a death card moment with the energies? They also referenced that Pluto went into Aquarius, and would the reverse be being stuck in the matrix? Like, do you think now that it's weird, like, you know, we've been stuck in the matrix and that's kind of been the place to be, but now I guess we've all been kind of ushered out, but there's so many people still stuck in, and that's kind of the weird moment, I guess, is what they're trying to maybe say. I don't know what you feel about it. Do you feel, though, that society's kind of going through the death card?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very guided death process, though. It's being overseen by higher powers, but yes, absolutely. And they're shaking it up a little bit more, and a little bit more, and the eyes are popping open. But there are some people that, yes, are desperately clinging to that matrix. It's all they've ever known.
Right.
That's all their parents have ever known. That's all their grandparents have ever known. And again, going back to the fear of the unknown, I guess, and the fear of embarrassment and the fear of looking stupid because the conspiracy theorists were right the whole time. I don't know, just a whole mixture of because I even know people personally who are just turning a blind eye to all of the truths that are coming out. They can even say something on mainstream media about, you know, how something that we've been forced to believe over the past 3 years was a load of shit.
Right.
And la 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 la
Right.
you know, and they're turning a blind eye to it, desperately clinging on to what they thought the world was. And yes, to answer the question, that would result in being stuck in the matrix.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%, especially that there's like an over energy watching, because I feel like the death card is something that's always watching us, and not in the creepy way. I think people have to unprogram the death is always on your door watching you, which technically it is, right? But it's not looking at every move ready for your death. It's the opposite. It's kind of an overwatcher of moments of you and ushering the moment like in the change to get you to the sunrise. That's what people don't realize. And even in the old days of knights, Lancelot was the Black Knight. He was the great one that was willing to go on the quests and the tours. And also there was a chivalrous, because if you notice in the cards, especially like when you think of Knight of Cups or any of the knights, you know, it's not a Knight of Wands, right? Where it's like, "Rah!" Like let's fucking go. Or even a rushing Knight of Swords. There's an elegance, there's a responsibility, that a spiritual responsibility that comes through with it. But that's what's so interesting is it's kind of where dark meets light too, you know, where it's like the shadow's over, the light's the awareness, and we've all had to meet that in society, right? It's like seeing the darkest society is not fun, but seeing through it and seeing the other side is what it's been about. Mm-hmm. Because now, if you were able to see through the society, I'd say we're still in the death card, but it's a long process. But it's like been the beauty of it, is like, if you're willing to face and see through that shadow, like you said, the eyes are popping open, right? It's like the one thing about Pluto, and you could tell somebody if they've been through life, which that's the funny part. There is no life card. They only make a game. But like, you know, it's funny because life and death go together, meaning if you look at somebody in their eyes and how they express themselves, you could tell they've lived. But when somebody, or that they are living, right? I think it's more about living, not alive or whatever. It's like, it's a process of that you are constantly in evolution and you're living. You could see that you're an expression. And I think that people who are willing to live and willing to express themselves and not be afraid, because it's all an illusion. It's all of us against, I can't even say against anything, because really it's sad. It's not just a couple people, even though technically you could look at it, that would be stuck in the matrix. So it's like an illusion that there's even these people that they even have power.
Yeah.
That it's not even about who's more powerful than another. It's about your own power within yourself and making a great life and fighting others that are on the same page. And that's a great death card moment, because there's a sunrise at that other side. And it's all the shit being pulled up. If you think of the last 3 years, shit, the moon card, all the fucking shit coming out. And it's crazy because, you know, the wolves were howling and all this shit, and the signs were everywhere. It was like, and the signs keep dripping everywhere, because that's what's kind of weird about the death card is it is a card it reminds me of Signs. Even that movie Signs a little bit.
Reminds you of what?
Signs. Just like signs from the universe. Like,
Yeah. No, we are definitely going through a major death moment that hopefully it doesn't turn into a tower moment. That's my worry. Because, you know, if the people would have just woke up and said, okay, so this is a bunch of bullshit, and just woke up, then it would have just been a smooth, clear death process from the old world to the new world. But it's because of the people who are desperately clinging to the matrix that eventually, and like we were talking off camera earlier, probably when it comes to November 2024 is when it might end up turning into a tower moment.
Right. And I was going to ask you, like, do you think the collective has to go through the tower moment of other people's towers? Like, it's not like if your neighbor goes through a full tower moment where they're, you know, selling fucking massive amounts of fucking fentanyl and they get arrested and all that stuff. The impact might be that the shock and awe of all the cops and the DEA and all that stuff, and you see them get escorted, and that's their tower moment. But it's like, it goes back to your life. I almost feel like the fucked up energy of others, especially if it's against humanity, that tower is not going to fuck up humanity that's been doing good things. That's, I think, the biggest illusion is that, you know, I even feel like during the Great Depression, you know, there's people who did well, but they didn't fall for the spell too of that. There was an interesting thing. It was on Meet the Press this weekend, which is like the oldest running like news political show. And they interviewed 4 people and they were asking about the economy and about guns and stuff like that. But at the end, it was like one of the guys said, we all need to, as people, just start hanging out and coming together, because that's going to be the only way that we're going to actually get anything done or get through this. And you'll realize that people, when we start getting together, things aren't as bad as we think, especially what's being said on the news. And he said that right to the newscast lady, and they aired it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's exactly what's happening. It's like, it's all fucking everywhere you go. It just reminds me of like the way that they have set this up. They thought their master plan was going to work with phones and everything and just in your feed and all this shit all the time, and push the negative and push the negative, and it's all going to be over and it's all going to end. And it's like, yeah, their shit's going to fucking fall. They want you to go down with it. You don't have to, though.
Yeah.
Like, the death card's not showing up to have you go to a fucking destructive moment. You know what I mean? I feel like, yeah, there's that moment though of like, okay, other people's shit can fucking do whatever. But I do feel like that's kind of like the world card. We are coming into a world card moment, you know, in this decade. It definitely feels like that. Like the end of a whole story of how the world's run and a whole new one. And we always hear New World Order and all these things. And I always think, I'm like, okay, that's their version of it and their control of an order. But I feel like there's also just a new world, a new earth, a new vibration.
Yeah.
And we really are at that choice.
Yeah.
Which there's a choice on the death card too, to stay in that matrix and let that fucking Hierophant just sit there and tell you, no, don't go. Stay in here. We have all the things that you want. You love your Amazon. You know?
Yeah.
The Pope is selling things on Amazon. Don't go. And then it's like, or just go where you feel, you know, like there's going to be too many of us going into the best place in the world. If anything, if you think of the Tower card, it would be about shit that we have been making our lives harder. But because too many people keep feeding that tower.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part of the mastery shit. And you confirmed it by a lot of the stuff that you have told me, that the dark literally knows all these skills. They use it and they use it against people.
Yeah.
And that to me is like the weird part of the death, that if anything death does too, it does work for the light. It works for the good. And unfortunately, it's weird. It does go against the Hierophant, which there's a lot. I mean, there's been a lot of shady shit with that. Whether it's money to all the children around the world. I mean, you know what I mean? And it's just like, and it's not representing God. Like we connect with God individually. We don't have to go through some fucking person to connect with God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the atrocities that have happened have been horrible. Or how many wars or deaths or everything. And that's the weird part about the death card. It's on a battlefield. And there's the Pope. He's not dead, of course. He shows up when it's over. You guys fought in the name of me and I'm blessing you all. They're already dead. That's the creepy part. I came here to bless all the dead people. Their souls already left. Mm-hmm. And of course, he was nowhere to be found when the fucking swords came out, you know? And so I feel like that, which is the truth and all the, you know, it's like, it's kind of weird to me. I feel like that's what's weird about this whole thing is like, well, you guys all wore your masks, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're blessed.
Yeah. You know what? You're probably right about that, though, about when, because like what we were talking about earlier, about how as soon as 2020 hit, the people who were locked into that fear, they're the ones that did bad.
Yeah.
And those of us who were like, no, fuck that. I'm not living in fear. We did better.
I know.
I doubled my income that year.
know.
You know? And everybody I know, I don't know one person who refused to live in fear that did bad. You know how many, and I sat back and watched people go from like working a minimum wage job to now a couple of them are millionaires now because they started a business. They used it as an opportunity. So you might be right. That does make sense that when it comes time for that tower moment, it'll be a tower moment for some people, but not for everybody. For those of us who are on that frequency, you know, yeah, well, Amazon's going to crash. You know, that
Yeah.
your little fiat currency is going to crash.
I know. Which it's fake. I mean, that shit doesn't come with us when we die anyway. That's the other weird part. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not like that stuff goes with us. But I think you're right. Everybody that was not afraid from, you know, you brought up jobs, money, but you love remembering what's real in life too. Like the real shit in life that had been in that matrix, like sucked up vacuum, black hole. I don't think it was a coincidence, right? As that hole was starting, we get the first pictures of a black hole, supposedly, right? But it's like, they want you to go into that. That's why they show you that shit, right? They want to show you now with all the pictures now in space of like, oh my God, look at these dark, you know, matter, you know, aspects. They focus so much on it, and they just want to entrap you thinking that the universe is this dark, destructive, and horrible place. And yet they won't show us the reflection of what we're really in. I think that's how you know it's really dark. And I think that day is coming in the most biggest way. I think people think it's about society change or all these things. And I think the real light that comes is, where are we really at? When we think of a matrix or we think of anything, it's like, we don't even know what we're really on fully and how it works. And they act like they know, but they keep, if you notice, they just, every decade, just everything they said that it was, no, it's not anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when you know we really don't know, and others know, and they're holding on too much, and they're not going to be holding on any longer. There's too many people coming out through even the CIA now saying about, hey, no, we know they know that there's this. We know that there's alien, that we know that there's shit behind the moon. We know that there's all this shit. So to bring up the lunar eclipse that's going to be here, and it's in Scorpio, not everybody reacts to a full moon lunar eclipse the same way, or even a full moon, right? Police put more, it's proven. Police put on more staff, more units on a full moon night.
Really?
Same thing at the hospitals, right?
Yeah.
There's more incidents at the hospitals because people emotionally don't know how to release correctly, and they wait for that last moment, and then they pop.
Yeah.
So it's one of those moments too, though, on a positive front, where it's like all these lunation cycles every month that we get month from the lunar month. Moon is month. Because a month is one cycle of the moon. And so it's like all these lunation months happen. And if you think of 19 years of them, it's like, think of every month, just like a clock ticking by and releasing and releasing and releasing to where it finally can change the slide of a new slide. And I feel like this new slide that's beginning to come is people's awakening. Letting go of the fear is the only way to awaken, though.
Yeah.
And so it's a big moment, but you know, I think that the thing that will change it all is when we get a better understanding of what we are on, what this really is.
Yeah.
That's what this is really about. If you feel, I don't know, that's what I sense in my senses of everything going on, is like, once you flip the lid off what's really in or what it really is, and you start revealing the cracks in their facade, boy, that's a death card moment.
Because there has to be some reason why, like there has to be a reason why they don't want us to know where we really are.
Right.
Why the hell would they be so adamant about hiding that from us? What does that have to do with their control over us? How would us finding out where we really are threaten their control that much? That's the part that I can't figure out. And if we are actually just in a holographic matrix, is there even really an out there? That's
right. You know, it's weird. The moon card is the two towers, and then the death card has the two towers, but with the sun in between it, right? And the moon landing, like, let's be real, in the 69, like in the televisions were fucking not that great. The static, the clarity. So they could get away with this whole shit, but it's like they put it right in front of your face with where's a lot of the answers to this moon and how it's the only thing that faces. It's like, imagine your hand just going around the table. You never see the backside of it. It's the only thing in the universe that does that. Everything else spins, shows itself. Your partner spins, shows themselves. Everything in the universe shows itself, but the moon doesn't.
Yeah.
And so whether that's a base, whether that's a fucking, it looks weird too, because when you look at the new high-end shots of the moon of just normal people like us, taken their fucking telescopes and really high-end cameras, and on Reddit, they've been taking the most ridiculous pictures. The moon I didn't even realize looked like that. You know what I mean? I'm like, what the fuck? And it looks like it's part of the ocean. Like it's weird because of all it doesn't look like craters to me, like an asteroid hitting it. I feel like it's like some aquatic situation going on. Which to me kind of reminds me of how they just have said that, octopus is a sentient being, I mean it's an alien. It's not from this planet, right?
Yeah.
And then I look up there and I'm like, when I take a seashell and you see all the divots in the hole, the craters in it, it's like, it's the same shit. I'm not saying that that's the truth. I'm just saying like, it's an interesting thing where it's like, what is that thing up there? Is that a satellite that's like frequencing and holding in people in this fucking thing? And why are they all, even last week, the Japanese just went up there and right when it was about to land, it was not government funded, but it was a privately funded Japanese company. Their rover was about to land and they lost communication and then it supposedly just ran out of juice and died.
Right.
But there's a couple CIA people who've just come out of recent and said like, there's messages that say you are not allowed to go to the dark side of the moon. Like there's just like, that's been said to the US government, everybody. And so you get around too close to that and beep, something happens.
Well, that's the thing. Like, what is the point?
Right.
That's what I always want to know. What's the point in hiding what is in Antarctica? What's the point in, like, if they're, like I fully, completely believe that there are entire cities underground.
Right.
That there are bases on the moon. Like, I've seen the footage from the moon. I saw that. Didn't we talk about that last time? Yeah. But the question is, what's the point in hiding that? How does us not knowing where we are give them control of us? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, because, I think a lot of it is like hiding. We know that. They're hiding something. What is it, though? But it reminds me of like all the child trafficking shit and how they have their tunnels that we've been discovering over these last like 4 or 5 years, like in crazy amounts, or even it's like all this stuff that's been hidden out of sight because they don't want to expose whatever they're doing. So obviously, if you take the child situation, I don't think they're doing something really nice up there on the moon.
Didn't they say? I think I heard somebody say they shot a missile at it one time.
Oh,
it rang like a bell.
It was weird. So somebody sent that to me actually this last week, and I was like, what? A missile? They just shot a fucking satellite, basically a probe at the moon, and they wanted to test it see if there was water, so to get it into the moon to see if there was ice, right? But when they got to the scene of actually it hitting, they went to 3D rendering bullshit, and they didn't show the actual shit. And I was like, again, they don't want to show us what's really going on or what that thing is. Even if you look at the pictures of the fucking moon landing, the fucking shadows are in both directions, it's like studio lighting. So there's obviously, I think you have the best question though. Why do they and what? But I think it's the why. That's the weird part. Because there's going to be a moment where, you can't hide anything in life. The death card, too, is a moment where it's all in the open, too. So if you're dealing with a life, you're dealing with like a 7 of swords, or you're dealing with any of that shit, the death card's like the most unhappy card for the 7 of swords. Like, that shit's coming out.
Yeah.
What the shenanigans have been. And that's the weird part about the 7 of swords is he's holding the swords by his hands, like where the blades are, and he's got that fucking, I don't know. I just call it that fucking piece of shit creeper look.
Yeah.
Like he's up to some dirty ass shit.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like is going on though.
Yeah. That's probably honestly what it is. Like if we find out that there's anything that they've been lying to us about,
right,
which there obviously is, then that's going to make them ask, well, then what else are they lying about? And then what else are they lying about? And that's the only thing I can think. That's the only thing I can think.
Oh, somebody just put here in the chat on High Vibe, I think it's shady. All these cajillionaires are allowed to go to space, but we have to renew our taxes every year. But it's funny because, okay, so they go up to space and then they fall back right down. They go up right to where they go out of the atmosphere and then they come right back down.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, that's not space. I'm like, space to me is like what's really going on. And also, you notice like they don't
It doesn't look, is it round? Or is it like?
Yeah, it looks like a fucking firmament.
Oh. Huh.
It does.
Wow. Because I have done so much intense study on that subject. And I've heard so much information from very trusted sources.
Yeah.
Who, like, the only thing that I can conclude, I've talked about this a couple of times. I believe the Earth is round, but based on all my research, I think it's round, but all the continents that we know of, that what we think are all the continents on Earth,
right,
are just one spot on this way bigger ball.
I agree.
I think that, and there's probably a firmament over this one spot on this big ball that has all the continents of Earth on it, and then outside of that firmament, there's land masses.
Right.
That's what, of my years of research,
I'm on the same page with you. I believe, because there's been too many, if you look at all the ancient pictures, they're giants. They're fucking literally giants. I don't know if people would be praying to Jesus if they made him as a gargantuan that was, you know, hung on a cross and everybody was this big. You know, they would be like, I don't know if I'm going to praise somebody that's not looking like me, right? So I don't know. I feel like it's there's something about what's on the other side, and that's what's weird about Antarctica. Why don't they let people? But you know, that's what's weird about the whole Nazi shit, right? It's like they were willing to go in those areas.
Yeah.
And then now, if you notice, the people who are in control are all the people who won and took out everything in World War II, and then controlled. Those are the first things they went to control. Was like, okay, Antarctica is this international thing, and you have to get a permit and approval to go down there. Space becomes only America, and then so Russia, which supposedly we don't like each other, but we still help each other out with space. You know what I mean? It's like, and we both went into Nazi Germany together and took all the shit.
Well,
and we both are the only two that have the big, huge nuclear capabilities, space capabilities, technologies. It's really fucking like there's something else going on and working with other players.
Yeah.
And there's like overlords, I guess that's where the term would come to, that are definitely, I feel like there's deals that have been made, and that's the weird part you can feel.
I think this all really goes back to studying the ancient texts about like who the God of the Bible really was.
Right.
Was a fucking dude.
Right.
Like the God they're talking about in the Bible is not the creator of the universe. It was a fucking dude.
I know.
Like it was flesh and blood people,
right,
who came here and pretended to be gods,
right,
and got everybody to worship them. And that's who they're talking about as God in the Bible. And then this dude's brother started trying to actually tell humans how powerful they really are. And then they said, no, that's Satan. So God and Satan that are talked about in the Bible are fucking people from other planets. And then there was that one book in the Bible, and God said, let there be a firmament.
Right.
So I think it was these fucking people came to Earth and said, no, this is my place. Put the firmament, or however they did it, probably with the same fucking shit they used to build the pyramids, and blocked off this little area and genetically modified until they came up with us. And then they just got their little firmament bubble of a little slave race. And outside of it, who knows what else is out there. But that's The best thing that I can come up with, man. All the research.
I mean,
I've
you're
done.
right. I mean, if you use, well, I'm sure you've heard of the term the age of Aquarius since you're an Aquarius.
Yeah.
That means we've been in the age of Pisces.
Yeah.
And Pisces deals with illusion, deception. And you wouldn't think that because Pisces is super also compassion and so forth. So it's like there's an illusion going on, but there's enough compassion to make us get through this thing somehow. But I feel like that's what's really interesting when you bring up like, it's like some guy named Constantine in 325 comes up with the idea because he sees a vision of Christ. Even though for 325 years Christ had been dead, we're going to switch this whole place to Christianity. And but if we're going to make this Bible thing come true, bring all the people who are pagans in here. And so Christmas, Easter, all these things are pagan holidays, right? So it's like they're using ancient stuff that goes beyond it and mixing it. And then today, people get lost into a lot of this stuff. And I have nothing against religion. I believe in God. Everybody's getting lost into who's the right God too, which is another manifestation crazy thing too, right? It's like, because I'll ask Christians, and I have so many Christians in my life and close to me, and if you were to tell them, well, what about the person in the Himalayas who's, up there and they're living a good life and they're helping farm and helping their neighbor next door, and they've never heard of Christ. Are they going to go to hell? And they'll say yes. I'm like,
Man,
wow.
I can remember.
Wow.
Yeah, I was brought up in a real strong Christian household. So as a kid, I had Christianity pounded into my head. And I remember when I went to junior high for the first time, was the first time I had ever met somebody of a different religion. He was a Muslim.
Yeah.
His name was Muji. I'll never forget this kid, man. He was cool. But I remember thinking in my mind, oh man, that poor guy, he's going to hell. Oh, he's going to hell. And he would wear his little, the little outfits they
hijab
wear. Yeah. And I'd be like, why are you wearing that today? He would say, because God is watching. And I was like, but you wasn't wearing that yesterday. So God wasn't watching you yesterday? And like, and I went through this for a good 6 months thinking, man, that poor guy's going to hell. And I'll never forget, I'm 13 years old. I'm sitting there, and my grandma's driving me to school one day, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, wait a minute. He's just doing the same thing I'm doing. The only reason that I believe that Jesus is the way to heaven is because this is what my grandparents taught me. The only reason he's doing that is because that's what his parents taught him. Who's right and who's wrong? I'll never forget. I had that light bulb moment when I was 13 years old. And ever since that right there is what really started. And it wasn't a year after that I dumped the Christianity and went off the deep end. But yeah,
But there's a fear associated if you go off the deep end, right?
Yeah.
That's why I think the death card's so interesting that it has Hierophant in it. It's like who's facing the sunrise is the death card. You know who's not? Who's got his back to the sun is the Pope. Right? It's like he's not paying attention to that because they don't want to ever lose their grip on religion, right?
Yeah.
It's their life source, it's their money, it's their only way, right? The chosen only one, right? But when you think of all these people here, it's like, oh wait, so that person's not chosen,
Yeah.
It's pretty fucked up. And I think that's part of the death card. When we got brought up in this whole chat about it, society, it's like, there's a lot of talk, whether it's left or right, about being all about freedom and being good people and all this shit. But when you compartmentalize it, people have to be a certain way, and they have to, and there's morals. So there's moral boundaries. There's all these different compasses that are natural and that we all agree with in society. But when it comes to some stuff that just, they don't even have verification, or, they go off. And then if you go off, it's like it's always some other person. And now they always say that you're not allowed to be the judge, yet they instill in you to judge.
Yeah.
So fast. It's like, they didn't go to church today. Did you see they're wearing that today?
Yeah.
Did you see that they're doing that? Did you see that I heard that they had sex before being married. I heard that they did. Right. The second, it's like, and that's kind of the lobster thing. Because the most vicious people I've ever met in my life have been the really hardcore religious.
Oh yeah.
That's what's really weird.
Yeah.
I'll hang out with the fucking person under the bridge than some of those higher up fucking places, because it's an indoctrination thing. And that's where the Hierophant is weird, because it is a major arcana card and it is built into the death card. And that's kind of a creepy thing. And the moon card, if you think about it, there's so many fucking things in that fucking card, man.
Yeah, I had never really paid that close of attention to all the details on this card, though, to be honest with you. Be 100% real with you.
Yeah.
I never really did. I'm not really that kind of reader. Sometimes when I'll throw a card down, I'll be like, oh, well, there's that little detail right there every now and then. But for the most part, I've never really paid that close of attention to it. You taught me a lot about this damn card, and I'm a professional tarot card reader.
Well, I mean, my thing is, I look at, as an astrologer, like the old, like I told you, my hobby is alchemy and looking at, there's hidden references and all. They don't. It's all in there wherever it is. If it's truly spiritual, it's all in there. Meaning, there's way more to it. A hieroglyphic in Egypt of just what people think is this, and then they try to make the scene. It's like a meme today. It's a million things within one meme.
Yeah.
Right? But for somebody to understand that 2,000 years from now, they're not going to get it, because they weren't exchanging in reality, and they won't get a picture of Biden looking like 95 with hell and him on the thing. They won't understand that. They'll just think that's a demon.
Yeah.
Well, he is.
Well, I mean, I think that's probably the next step to telepathic communication too, because with a telepathic communication, like, we could take everything that we've talked about this whole show in an instant.
Right.
Bam. And it's one huge concept that's all downloaded right now instantly. And that's, I think, reading the tarot and learning how to understand what memes mean and things like that, and going back to that hieroglyphics.
there's
This book that I bought. It's called The Handbook. And this guy channeled some ancient Native American spirits that wrote it. And at the beginning of every chapter, there's a little hieroglyph. And he said that if you know how to read it, and it'll just be a little symbol, he said you can get all the information in that whole chapter out of that one hieroglyph.
Right.
And I think that's leading us closer to telepathic communication.
It's true.
Would that make sense?
It makes complete sense. I mean, even people here in High Vibe are saying even the Bible, though, has a lot of beautiful esoteric understandings. And it's got, if you have, like, I have a King James Bible from 1625, and there's more pictures than that than you realize in esoteric pictures. Like, I believe it's all good. Some people have been saying that I'm the anti-Christian channel. It's like, no, I'm the understanding the whole picture. And
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to call out something that doesn't make sense about something. It's like, I'm not putting down Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm putting down the church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not putting down the Bible. I'm putting down the church. This organized, because if we're talking about how we're going to all be in the awakening experience, I always say the hardest fucking drug to ever come off of is fucking religion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the epitome of basically the way this whole 3D matrix, and even leading up to 2020. All the shit they pulled there in 2020, like the foundation that was built on was listen to what I say and don't ask questions. And that's religion. That's religion. Just listen to what I'm telling you and don't ask questions.
I'm going to be real, because what in the last 3 years, what did every church do? They parroted what the media said to do. Don't come to church. Go get the shot.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Some of them went against it. So the churches that really are rebellious and told people to follow God for real, that was very few. There were some guys in Canada, there were some guys in America, but majority of them told them do what the media is telling you to do. And that's how I knew most the fucking churches and most of these religious aspects. I mean, even the Dalai Lama got shot up. You know what I mean? But we all know
Well, yeah. It looked like it.
Well, that and just the weird shit he did to that boy recently. It's just like, it's
Man,
just
they got people making excuses for that.
I know. That's how you know that there's a religion in that. Which, again, the Dalai Lama is not his name. That's the name as if he was Pope, right? There's always a Dalai Lama. So when he passes, there'll be another Dalai Lama. There's been many Dalai Lamas. It's like this is what's people want to know what Pluto and Aquarius is. It's breaking out of these societal traps because, you know, if you're of faith in God, you should have got the memo from God that all this shit was bullshit.
Yeah.
But why is it that all the religions did not get that memo if they are so channeled to God? And they told people to go through things that either killed them or hurt more people or forced people to judge others if they didn't get a fucking experiment. Like that to me is not the most quasi-spiritual religious aspect there is. Like I'm going to force you and I won't talk to you and I won't go to your house and I won't be thy neighbor with you until you've done this. That's the spiritual test that's been had. And the death card's the exposing of it all. You know? And so you get looked at as the bad one. That's why the death card gets such a bad rap. I have a death card t-shirt. People look at me like I'm the fucking devil. It's not the devil card.
I do too.
You know? And it's like, hello? Like he looks bad, but he ain't. That's what's crazy. That's the craziest part to me. It's like, oh God, he's the bringer of all this death. But if you notice the crown too, that's in the tower and that's in all the kings, is fallen too in the death card. The death card is not the bad one.
No, it's good. It's
you know
good if
I mean?
you can ride the wave and trust the process.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, if I'm manifesting, like the death process is the most important part. I mean, it's going to come natural one way or the other. I mean, it's going to happen, but especially if you're manifesting, you know, and I think I was talking about this in that one episode, like say you start manifesting money and then all of a sudden shit starts getting weird at your job and your boss starts acting weird and you're like, what the fuck did I do to you? You know, that's the death process.
Right.
That's the beginning of it. And then a lot of people will hold on to it and try to control it until the tower moment comes and they lose their job. And then they think, oh my God, it's over. It's like, no, the universe was trying to give you what you were manifesting and you fought against it. You fucked it up.
Right.
It's a good thing.
Honestly, they should just change the death card into the truth card.
Yeah.
And I know people love to be with us on the show, but we got to go. So you're going to have to let go. And see us next week and catch Rich's new episode that's going to be up tonight. And it'll be on Tuesdays more in the day. Just we're getting it all locked in. Had some awesome meetings. This Mercury retrograde's been awesome.
Yeah.
Big lunar eclipse. Make sure you follow Rich and his channel for all his tarot readings and so forth. And if you join High Vibe to watch him, and he has a link. If you go to him, if you want to subscribe through Rich, go to his website. And we're building a new site for him to subscribe through, and it's super cool. So.
Yeah, we're going to break this down. We're going to make sure people understand this shit.
Yeah.
You know, that manifestation has been so overplayed for so many years. And there's been so much misleading information out there that I feel like I'm one of the few. There's a couple of us out there who are actually trying to get you to understand how it really works.
Right.
And that's the goal with this new series, is to actually break it down and explain it in a way that you can actually connect with. It doesn't sound like fluffy, silly shit that you can't understand. I want you to be able to understand it so that I don't care who you are. I don't care what your sign is. Don't care where you're from. I don't care what your race, religion, sexuality. You can take these principles and figure out how to apply them to your life and actually point to real results in your life. That's my goal.
I mean, in this first episode you just did, just your intro, I learned so much from it that gave me confirmation, but also new ways of looking at, you know, like, man, and I thought I knew you already had poured out your own personal story in this. I'm like, you didn't even, you gave the surface.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh man. So it's pretty awesome. Make sure you check it out. Of course, catch us every Monday. And we'll be also, starting next week, we'll be pushing this on Rich's channel too. So it doesn't matter if you're on my channel or Rich's if you're not on High Vibe. But if you're on High Vibe, then you're on the app and then you get to watch. And those are the only questions that we look at. So truly appreciate you all. Love you much. We'll see you on the next one. Adios. And if you have recommendations, email us too, or put them in the comments below on YouTube, or if you're on High Vibe, on maybe a card that you want us to kind of break down spiritually, the next one. Love to hear from you all. And if you guys have questions that we can answer too. Adios.